where it gets hard. And the harder it is, the more you start to push back. And the more you push back, and then it's not right for people to talk about. It's not right for, like, let's say you are fat. I was fat. That's why I talk about it. Go ahead and say something. I was fat too. And it was hard every day to get up. I know what it feels like when you roll your fat ass out of bed and all you want, but I can't want it more than you. And so many people just want it the easy way. I'm sorry, man. It's not. So what they start to do is they build this narrative of it's okay. When the narrative should be, you need to work harder. You need to discipline your mind better. We need to help people more than just saying it's okay. It's okay that you're not willing to help yourself out. That's not okay. It's not okay. It's not acceptable. Even though it's your life, if that's acceptable, that's unacceptable. And there's a lot of people in this world, me included, that if I accepted that, I wouldn't be anywhere. So yeah, a lot of people just, they start creating a narrative about themselves that make it okay. The ultimate get out of jail free card. And now the world is set up to have so many get out of jail free cards. Everything is okay. And you can't say a motherfucking thing about it. I want you to go there with me. I'm taking you there with me. I'm a storyteller. I want to take your ass down paradise. So the house I lived in Buffalo, New York, that I got my ass beat every day, funny. We lived on Paradise Road. And it was anything but paradise. So I want you to go there with me. You want to learn from me? Let me take your ass home. Let me take you there. So that's the whole thing about it, man. We're scared to dive into our lives. What made us who we are? The beautiful people that we are. We're all jacked up in so many ways. That's the beauty of us. That's the beauty of me. I'm jacked up, but I figured out my own little process on how to get unjacked up and how to. I'm not going to get the same, I'm not going to get the same way you're going to get there. You may get there by going point A to point B. I might go point C to D to E to F, but I'm going to be there the same way you are, just a little harder. That's how I train my brain. So it's just different. I'm just a different thinker. My part-time savage was me running like 50 miles a week. What I used to do, and what I do now, is I got to a point, I'd be running, and I was like, okay, man, we could do 10 miles today. I get to 10 miles, but oh no. That fucking demon that I let out every morning that walks the streets at night, he comes and says, no, bitch, not today, man. There's somebody out there that you don't know, have never met in your entire life, that is doing 12, 13, 14. You're going to do another one. And when you meet them, you ain't going to be ready. So Goggins kept on running. So that's where the 40% thing comes in. It comes in when you're in suffer mode and you say, I'm not going to quit. You're forcing your brain now to operate on a level it's not used to, but then it becomes used to it. In times of need, even the hardest person forgets how badass they are. So I've been through a lot in my life. When you're going through a hard time right now, you forget all the hard time you endured. So the cookie jar is a reminder that, oh, I can get through this hard time right now, but you gotta take a second or two to reach into the mental cookie jar. You gotta open up and say, okay, man, I was in 3 hell weeks and I got through 2 of them. I was in Ranger School. I saw these beatings. My mom's soon-to-be husband got murdered. All these things I endured alone. I had to remind myself of the strength and the power that I have, that it's in me. It's just a reminder of how badass you are in hard times, because we just forget that bad time consumes our mind. I see where I'm at today, but I know where I come from. I'm amazed at what a human being can actually do. So when I start talking to myself in the third person, it's strictly because I know that I literally made this human being out of a whole bunch of scraps. I wasn't a mechanic. I wasn't a carpenter, so I didn't know how to do any of this. I wasn't trained in how to build a human being from nothing. Like my mom didn't train me, my dad didn't train me, life didn't train me. Well, life did train me, correction. And I started putting this scrap metal together. I'm like, I wonder what's gonna happen. And after a while, I started learning more and more and more through pain and suffering. I started learning so much about stuff. Before I knew it, man, I built this beautiful car. And I'm like, how did I do that? I know how to do it because I have all the tools. Through all the failure I went through trying to build this person who's Goggins. It's called raw accountability. Not just accountability where we find that nice, happy word. If you're fat, and you look in the mirror and you say, wow, I eat a little too much. No, you're fat. You cannot say that to yourself. You have to make a list of the things that you don't like to do. This list should be very long. Like if you don't like making calls, the very first thing you should do is start making a ton of calls. Because why? That begins to own you. You start to drive yourself this way versus this way. But you'll figure out, if you start making a whole bunch of calls, if you like calling, call a lot. Guess what happens? You get over it. So what we do a lot is, I heard a lot of people say, triple down on this, triple down on most of your strength. No. That works for a lot of things, but when you're afraid and you don't have the courage, you have to triple down on your weaknesses and make that become where you start to guide yourself. Okay, I don't like calling. Today I'm making 100 calls. I'm gonna dial 100 times. What happens is, when I was younger, life and society made this big world with all these endless possibilities. My life made my possibilities this big because it made me afraid of all these different things. So all this stuff trapped my mind, it shackled my brain, it made me a prisoner within my own self, saying, this is all I can do. Because why? I'm afraid of this, I'm insecure over here, I got self-doubt over here, that behind me, good Lord, who knows what's behind me? I'm not gonna look behind me. So your life is this big. Versus it being like, I can do all this shot here if I start to break down these walls and barriers. And that's what I started realizing. I could become a Navy SEAL. I could become this, but I was afraid of the water. Think about this. Why are you gonna go be a Navy SEAL when all you do is play in the water? And we don't play, we're in it and we're living in it. So my mind is, I'm gonna go be a Navy SEAL. If I didn't face that fear, no one would ever know me. I was number 3 behind Michelle Obama for a long time until my book sold out. And I was a guy just 21 years ago who was 300 pounds, could barely read and write, and now I have a book just 2 spots behind Michelle Obama, just because I was afraid. But you overcome those fears, guess what happens? The whole world, you unlock this door and everything opens back up again. I once had that mentality, that no one understands what the I'm going through. And if you keep that mentality, you're gonna stay in the same exact spot that you're in. Everybody's going through. So when people get this mentality of like, you don't understand me, you can throw a rock to someone that can understand you if they're willing to break themselves down and stop hiding. A lot of people understand you, but you gotta stop hiding. And then this guy was in my mind. We suffer every day. It's what we do. We do stuff that sucks every day. So then when the suck stuff comes, you're ready for it. And that's how it started coming up. You know, I just started being very uncomfortable. And now it's like just a way of life. What I realized is for me to become the man I wanted to become, I saw myself as the weakest person God ever created. But I never blamed God for anything he did to me. So I wanted to change that to be the hardest man ever created. Am I that? I don't know, but you had to have a goal. I always fixed the things on the surface. If I couldn't read and write, I learned to read and write. I would always fix these things on the surface level. And so whenever something hard would like raise its ugly head, I didn't have any kind of tools to handle it. I'm like, man, I thought I fixed this already, man. But no, I didn't go deep into the dungeon of my soul to say, okay, what is making you a quitter? What is making you a weak man? What is making you afraid? That's why I kept on quitting and going back to start or not knowing how to get through hard times. And that's why I always tell people, I'm not a theorist. I didn't study, I didn't study a book. I literally put myself in a fire repeatedly like a sword. You put a sword in the fire repeatedly and repeatedly. If you keep on doing that, you're gonna get a nice sword. And then you keep on beating it. You gotta beat the shit out of it. And that's what I am. Yeah. I became that, I said, okay, we can't quit. We got to figure out what is wrong with you, what's going on here. So I kept on putting the sword back in the daggone fire and I just beat it harder. And I beat it harder. Before I knew it, I started realizing, all right, man, the brain is starting to get hard. The brain is starting to get hard. I'm waking up and I'm giving myself all this armor. So when I come out in the world, now look at that phone, I'm ready. I'm not waking up late. I'm not rushing around. I'm not disorganized because I know I'm gonna get hit in the mouth. There's an art to getting hit in the mouth. And that is why these things are important. You have to wake up and you have to give yourself belief. You have to give yourself confidence. So it starts with that run. Anywhere from about 1:30 to 2 hours, I run every day. So
you're fasted on the morning?
Yes.
Up, straight out?
Straight out.
90 minutes to 2 hours of running, back,
Yep. Eat, and I'm in the gym. So, and then after that, to whatever's on the plan for the day. That's how that works every day.
That's your day. There is no room for anything else.
Yeah, there is a lot of room. So there's 24 hours, and I use it all pretty well. That's why I got a cap success, because I can't put that in, and that's my growth factor. So that's my human growth factor. And some of these motivational people out here, it's the funniest thing in the world to me. They'll go and say, when you wake up in the morning, pound your chest, look at yourself in the mirror, and do all this fucking bullshit. I hope it works. What works for me is that everyday resume, the things I know I've accomplished, the things I know I've done, real hard work, the real calluses on my mind, the real calluses on my hands. That's it. You don't need to pound your chest in the mirror anymore if you have that. A lot of it is limited horizons. Limited horizons are like, I use me as an example always. I came from a small town in Indiana where there was a handful of black families. And a lot of people in that town, when you come from a town of 8,000 people, it's like we had a local plant, Great Dane. And you're like, you know what? I want to work at Great Dane and get a house next to my mom. That's what you know. So many of us come from these small places in our mind that we're not willing to think outside of only what we've seen. Our mind works in such a small compartment. And one thing I was able to do was to dream. Many people, but don't make dreams your master. But I was able to dream outside those four walls of that small town. And until you're able to really put yourself into that dream, but don't make dreams your master, that's where you truly become what you're destined to become. A lot of people sit back and they dream about being a sports figure, or dream about being a SEAL, or dream about being an astronaut, and all it is a dream. They don't put the work behind the dream. That dream has become their master. When you become the master of your dream is when you say, I want to go be a Navy SEAL, and you say, okay, I'm going to lose 106 pounds in less than 3 months. The dream was the one thing I thought about, and the dream was now gone. Now, what comes in, the dream goes away, and the laundry list of details and tasks come up. Gotta do this, gotta do this, gotta do this, gotta do this. That's when you become the master of your dream. So, a lot of people out there dreaming. But guess what happens? That alarm clock goes off at 4 a.m. to train. You take off the first one, I want to be smarter. For me, that was my thing. I have to become more intelligent. I have such a severe learning disability. I had to now get that one thing and then strategize in that one problem. How can I do this? I'm not going to learn like you. I'm not going to learn like anybody else. How am I going to figure this out? So I then figured out, okay, where are my strengths here? Where are my weaknesses in learning? All right, man, how am I going to do this? And I figured out a way to do it by just strategizing. So how I learn to this day, if I have a big manual to study, I will have to get a bunch of spiral notebooks from the daggone store. And each page, I have to write each page out, maybe 10 times. So there was a 1,000-page dive manual that I got 18 months before I went to dive school. Most people, I'm not smart, I'm gonna go see if I can pass this test. I realized, hang on a second, I'm not smart. How can I get past this? How can I get through this obstacle? I need to acquire this book 18 months in advance, because it could take me 18 months to write down each page over and over again to then put it to memory. So when the question came up, I had written that question so many times down in that paper that I can recall, okay, page 71 was where I remember seeing this, and I can recall it that way. And that's how I did it. So you gotta strategize on each problem you have in life. Slowly break down that problem. Don't think about all the problems you have, just one at a time. And before you know it, you fix all these problems, but you cannot focus on all of them. Just on the one thing at a time.